Yeah, I guess globalization itself is now being under no, threat because all countries in the last 4 5 years, thanks to the financial crisis earlier, companies are
Mm.
becoming more protective of their own their own citizens, and I think are more insisting on localization. So coming to the present crisis, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what was announced earlier this week by President Trump, would you be able to throw some light on what exactly has happened and what kind of, so which are the kind of people who would be affected in? So if you can, because we do have about 8 people right now, and I also
Mm-hmm.
have a new guest, Bhaginath Menon, who is from Bangalore, who is also joined in. Hey friends, why don't you please comment on the Facebook? It'll be easier for us to understand if you had any queries, and I would be glad to have such an experienced professional like Rajiv address this, because he has been looking at this issue very closely. Yeah, Rajiv. So please tell us about the H1B. What
See,
kind
there
of
are
people
three.
are being affected? Yeah.
Let's categorize or let's segment three certain categories of H1Bs. One,
Right.
those who are going to the US as a fresh H1B. Uh, those who have been deployed in the US from Indian companies, companies which bid projects in the US and send their workers to go work there, offshoring them. And
Right.
third category will be those uh, students, international students who go there in the US, get a US degree, and then find a job and get onto an H1B visa.
Right.
Uh, so there are those probably who have studied in the US and currently working would not be affected as much with the suspension,
Okay.
because the idea is uh, uh, they would be competing with the American citizens to look for a job, but they
Right.
would definitely get a preference. And uh, one of the policies, which is merit-based policies of the Trump administration, is to give uh, easier, a faster access to green card is for these who have a US education. So they
Right.
probably would not be affected as much as far as finding a job is concerned. The concern will be of two people. One, those who are looking at arriving for the first time in the US. And I
Okay.
would believe they who have never applied to the US H1B before. And that seems to be a bigger threat. And they would not be able to arrive in the US until the 1st of October 2022, which is 2 years from now.
2022. We are still in June 2020. Can you
Yes.
please elaborate on
I'll,
that?
sure. If the suspension stays until 31st of December this year, 2022, 2020, uh, it's January 1st until March 31st, just a 90-day window where a company or a American company who intends to petition for a work visa, H1B, for a citizen from abroad, they just have a 90-day period to do the documentation, get approvals from the Department of Labor and then the USCIS, which is the US Citizenship and Immigration Service. And it's a lengthy, elaborate process. But
Right.
more than that, I think what is important is Indian companies which bid projects in the US and deploy Indian workers there would have a real tough time, because they would have to document that they have an active client, active job for an Indian knowledge worker to go from their employee in India to go to the US. The reason being, if historically Indian companies have been bidding projects and winning projects based on low costs. Even if an American company today uh, awards a bid to an Indian company, they would have to wait for 6 months for a new H1B to come in from India.
Oh, okay. So,
Because if the company wins a bid today, the
right.
company, any Indian software company, the big names, if I may, they will have to wait for 6 months to sustain uh, their employee back in India and make sure that person is deployed overseas to the client. Technically, in immigration, how can any American company foresee a job 6 months down the line?
Absolutely. I remember when as a recruiter,
Because
when I talk to companies, everybody wants people as of yesterday. Okay. So
exactly.
at best, you probably wait for 2 months or 3 months for a person to join. So this
Mm.
new regime you're saying that will entail somebody to wait for 6 months before he or she is onboarded on site.
Very true. Because I mean, look, a work visa is a function of a job, right? I mean, you
Right.
need a job to be filled today or tomorrow, or maybe yesterday,
Right.
as you said. You cannot foresee a job 6 months down the line, and so that you can file a petition or for a alien worker at a time when you have so many unemployed in the US.
Sure.
So that definitely is going to affect the Indian companies. And again, as we are saying, the 90-day window is too short a time for them to send their resource with a new H1B to the US.
Right. So this will
Technically,
primarily affect Indian IT services companies more than anybody
yes,
else.
yes.
Okay.
Also, April 1st is the earliest when they can file in a petition for an
Right.
alien worker.
Right.
And they have until October 1st where they could go in for a stamping. October 1st or after. That's the rule.
Right.
So typically companies would have 1st of April until October 1st to file petitions and get approvals. And that's where of late there has been a lottery system because of the huge applications going in specific from India.
Right.